Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today's video is going to be somewhat brief, and it's a bit of a preparation for the video that I intend to post next week. Now, the video for next week is a list of 28 practical helps for Christian women on a certain subject matter. But I got to thinking that, it's pretty easy, isn't it, to just work out a list and try to crank that behavior out. And if we're doing it with wrong motives, then it's not going to count for anything in the end, literally. Because when your heart is not right, your motives are not where they should be, then even a really good list will end up in the trash, lost in the shuffle of all your other paperwork, whatever. If you keep trying to work off of a list and your heart is not right, then you'll end up resenting the list and the person who created the list. So I don't want that either. But more than anything, I want us to be motivated and have the right heart intentions, because that's what matters most to God. Whether we're feeding the poor, clothing them, visiting people in prison, taking strangers into our home, whatever it is, whether we're eating or drinking or whatever, it's all to the glory of God. We are to love the Lord with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. So all that we're doing should be prompted and spring forth from a heart that wants to glorify God and love our neighbor. We need to guard our heart with all diligence, vigilance, because out of it flows all the issues of life. And so this is why I feel compelled to do this video, and I thought it was going to be just like a side note, quick video before like the main video, but actually upon meditating, I'm absolutely convinced that this is actually the main video, because again, it's not so much in the end what we do externally that matters to God, but what motivated us internally to then do the external. I want to share with you a few scriptures, just a few of many that deal with the motives, because I want you to be convinced that everything you're doing, check your motives. Like literally ask yourself the question, what's my motive for doing this? We can have a tendency, without even realizing it, of just life just turning into a routine. Even reading your Bible and praying can become, such a good thing can become routine. And good things, if you're trying to be a good wife, if you're trying to be a good daughter, if you're trying to be a good mother, a good student, a good worker, a good whatever it is that you're trying to do, and you're trying to do it well, and that's what we should be striving for, that all that we do it excellently. But it's not going to last if you just try to like motivate yourself, and for what it could be any motivation under the sun. There are motivational speakers galore on the internet, and they can get you really, really stirred up based on, really good ideas and ways of thinking. But in the end, if your motivation is not out of love for God, love for others, and ultimately to glorify Him, it's not going to work. The only thing that's going to last is God has saved me. Christ shed His blood for me. He gave His life. He died. He resurrected. And it's all about loving Him for what He's done and being grateful for what He's done in saving me and saving us, and just simply realizing that it's just reasonable that in return we live for Him, we live according to His word, we strive to glorify Him, we strive to make Him look really great and desirable here in the world, because He's worthy of that. It's very sobering what the Bible has to say about Judgment Day, that on Judgment Day, it says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, that our motives, our intentions of the heart will be revealed. At 1 Corinthians chapter 3, there's that portion where Paul is addressing servants or ministers, those teaching, and he talks about how on Judgment Day, a lot of things that genuine Christians did are going to be burned up, and they're not going to count for anything. It does say at the end of that they will be saved, but they'll suffer loss, versus the faithful who are building based on Christ, His Word, His glory, truth. Those are things that are lasting, they're eternal, they're likened to gold, silver, precious stones. That's a principle right there for every Christian, not just limited to the teacher or the preacher. There's a principle there that is worth really taking heed to, because we will be judged for why we did what we did. There are regrets that we can have in this lifetime, which I try to encourage myself, first of all, and everybody else, to let's try to live according to the Bible wisely so that we have as little regret as possible in this lifetime. But ultimately, the most concerning thing is that we not be full of regret on Judgment Day, which we will, because how we could never be like, oh yeah, I'm glad I did enough for Christ in this lifetime. It's like, no, we could never do enough. But as far as like having light and not living up to that light, I remember John MacArthur said once that the hardest thing for him as a pastor was seeing his people who were so well taught by him not living up to the light that they had. And so we want to make sure that we're living up to the light that we have, and today's light is motives. That we need to be very sober-minded, very mindful, very intentional about our motives, why we're doing what we're doing. Got to be convinced why you're raising your children the way you're raising them, why you're homeschooling. Mom, why you're staying at home. Singles, why you're making very deliberate choices to maintain purity before the Lord. Women, why you're submitting to your husband, why you're respecting your husband, and so forth and so on. So let's quickly look at a few scriptures. To start off with, there's 1 Samuel 16, verse 7, that talks about how God does not judge the way we do, how man tends to judge by appearance, but God looks at the heart. Jeremiah 17:10 says, I, the Lord, search the heart, I test the mind, to reward a man according to his ways by what his deeds deserve. Proverbs 16:2 says, all a man's ways are pure in his own eyes, but his motives are weighed by the Lord. Proverbs 21:2 says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. 1 Thessalonians 2:4, and this is regarding preaching the gospel, but same idea. It says, so we speak not to please people, but rather God, who examines the heart. And then there's Ephesians chapter 6, verses 6 through about 8. It says, don't work only while being watched as people pleasers, but as slaves of Christ, do God's will from the heart. Serve with a good attitude as to the Lord and not to people, knowing that whatever good each one does, slave or free, he will receive this back from the Lord. So again, just spend some time asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Think about it. And it really, really does help on a practical level to have these things well established, why you're doing what you're doing. And you really have to intentionally revisit this on a regular basis. Because like I said, it's so easy to just get into the routine of life, and then everything just feels real mundane, and then out goes your motivation, out goes your striving to excel for Christ, because that's what he's worthy of. We're supposed to live in a manner that Christ is worthy of, and so we need to be motivated by what's true, not to please men. You don't even want to do this list that I'm going to give you, Lord willing, next week, to please your husband. That is a really good motive, And that is factored in there, but it's not the primary reason for what you're doing, because the only thing that's going to keep you going in that mode of things pertaining to this list is your love for Christ. Because your love for your husband, even as much as you love him, won't be enough on a daily basis for the long haul. That's the thing. It's easy to do things for a little while. Isn't it easy to start on exercise programs and diet programs, but everything eventually just goes by the wayside? But when your motive is because God has said it, Christ is worthy, I want to glorify him, I want to do this life right so that when I stand before the Lord, I won't suffer so much loss, because I had so much pride in my life that was motivating what I was doing, that I had so many insecurities in my heart, in my life, in my thinking, so that so much of what I did was just to please man, to look good, to be approved by others. Maybe it's even you feel like you have to work and work and work in order to maintain like acceptance with God, which that's not true salvation at all. Our acceptance is always going to be based on the merits of Christ and what he did. And then our life, again, is just simply the overflow of gratitude and love for God for saving us. Preach the gospel to yourself every day, because when you realize what you have been saved from, and you realize what you have gained from our salvation, this great gift of salvation that we've been given, that should be enough to propel us forward day after day after day as we renew our mind every day, like it says in Romans, that we remember where we have come from, what Christ saved us from, the pit that he pulled us out of. We, of all people, should be most motivated in life to excel for the glory of God. We as Christians can be put to shame by how shrewd and productive and successful the unconverted world can be compared to us, the children of light. And I have seen lost people giving themselves to things that will not matter in the end on Judgment Day. We all know people who are sacrificing their life, they're sacrificing their children, they're sacrificing their health for money. They literally kill themselves working, workaholics, just grinding and divorced because they're neglecting their family, and kids are rebellious and being neglected, and parents aren't in the home cultivating an environment of love and security. But it's because of this drive that lost people have that make us as Christians look really pathetic when it comes to our motivation. We, again, of all people, should be running hard, motivated, passionate about what we're doing because of what Christ has done for us. And I'll go ahead and close with that. Thanks for listening, and may the Lord help us. We need his help. We need his help badly, don't we? And he's willing to help. He's a very ready and present help. So let's cry out to him. Let's keep looking to him. Let's keep looking to his word and striving to just stay aligned with him, beginning from the inside out.